This is Optimal Finance Daily, episode 1953. Pay Yourself Last, Why You Don't Need a Budget. Part 1 by Stephen Keyes of tripofalifestyle.com. And I'm your host and personal finance enthusiast, Diana Merriam. I have a bit of a longer post today. I'll read the first half today and then finish the rest for you tomorrow. So let's dive into the first half and start optimizing your life. Pay Yourself Last, Why You Don't Need a Budget. Part 1 by Stephen Keyes of tripofalifestyle.com. Pay yourself first is popular wisdom in the world of personal finance. The idea is simple. Every time you make money, you must save or invest a fixed amount of that income before doing anything else. Then you can spend the rest however you like, guilt-free. By prioritizing saving over everything else, you're paying yourself first, and you'll always meet your savings goals. It sounds pretty smart at first, but we've never actually done it. In fact, we accumulated wealth much faster and retired early by taking the exact opposite approach. We paid ourselves last. Whenever we made money at work, we would spend only as much as we needed to live a happy, fulfilling life, which we found isn't all that much. Then 100% of the remainder would be invested, ultimately buying us freedom and making work completely optional. When we made extra money or found another way to cut our expenses, we didn't level up our spending. We just saved even faster. Budgets are for beginners. Traditional budgeting strategies work best for people who plan to operate on thin margins. If your goal is to save 5 to 10% of your income so you can retire comfortably when you're 65, the old school methods will probably work fine. By clearly budgeting the amount you plan to save, you'll never underperform your minimum goal. So that's cool. The problem is that the remainder of the cash will always get spent, regardless of whether it's necessary or truly beneficial. After all, it's considered extra money in your budget. So you might as well spend it, right? On the other hand, if you're a reader of this blog, you're probably thinking about how to invest 50 to 80% of your income and retire decades younger so you can enjoy the best years of your life the way you want to. Your concern is how to absolutely max out that savings rate and achieve financial independence as soon as possible. So why put a limit on your saving? When you pay yourself last instead of sticking to a specific budget or saving schedule, you'll treat every purchase with the consideration it deserves. You'll realize that every dollar you don't spend is $1 closer to lifelong freedom, plus interest. Thinking this way builds a mental muscle that encourages faster saving and continuous happiness optimization. It makes you reflect on what's truly important to you and eventually stop wanting more stuff than you really need. That's a recipe for a richer life in more than just the financial sense. Make saving money a game. Traditional budgeting can sometimes make you feel like you're on a restrictive diet. When you're on a budget, it can seem like saving money is the thing keeping you from doing what you want. Once you change your mindset and realize that saving money is exactly what will allow you to do the things you want, instead of sitting in an office 5 days a week for the rest of your life, it gets way more exciting. For us, saving and investing started to feel like a game we were playing everywhere we went. The amount of money we saved was dependent on our spending and our earning, and we were constantly going for the high score. Our new obsession became finding ways to spend less and make more. We engineered our lives so that we could get by with just one used car and a couple of bicycles. We figured out creative menu hacks to score cheaper food at restaurants, and we earned more money by job hopping into better paying careers and doing somewhat ridiculous side hustles like credit card churning. The score of this game was measured by a monthly net worth check-in. Each month, we wanted to see as big of a positive change as possible. Teaming up to try and beat our previous record was a fun challenge that brought us closer together as a couple. If we had a traditional budget with preset savings goals, we would have just seen the same monotonous amount added each month as we counted down the fixed number of years to retirement. Boring. More importantly than that, if we had committed to investing a fixed percentage of our incomes, it probably would have been something within reach early in our journey, like 50%. But by banking all excess income, whatever that may be, instead, we actually saved more like 80% of what we made in higher earning years. By the way, the difference between a 50% savings rate and an 80% savings rate is 10 to 11 years of additional work. In other words, keeping a strict budget might have actually delayed our early retirement by close to a decade. An example of budget fallacies: vacation planning. Consider the classic personal finance advice for vacationing. Plan a trip months in advance, estimate its cost, add that into your budget, and earmark money for your trip each month until you hit that goal in a special vacation savings account. There are a few things we personally hate about this way of thinking. First of all, if you budget $3,500 for your vacation, guess how much you're going to spend while you're away? At least $3,500, regardless of whether you really need to. Once money is designated for a specific purpose, people have a psychological tendency to spend it all, no matter what. We scored a sick deal on our flights and saved $400, people will say. So we're able to take that $400 and spring for the upgraded suite at our hotel. In reality, money is fungible. You don't have to spend money on your vacation just because it was in a savings account labeled vacation savings. If you can take a great trip for less than you planned, the rest of that money can be kept, freeing you from mandatory work sooner. To be continued. You just listened to part 1 of the post titled, Pay Yourself Last, Why You Don't Need a Budget, by Stephen Keys of tripofolifestyle.com. Now, if you've been listening for a while, you know that I'm a fan of budgeting, but you need to find a way to monitor your money that isn't painful. Many people find budgets restrictive, and I'd guess that's mostly because they're more susceptible to overspending than our friend Stephen who wrote this article. But when it comes to restrictions based on an acceptable spending range, this is not coming from an outside force or being forced on you from the budgeting gods. This is you determining for yourself what an acceptable amount of spending is based on your income, values, and financial goals. You are in absolute control of your own budget. I think if your budget feels like a straitjacket, it's probably because it's unrealistic. So tweak it and work towards making tiny 1% improvements each month rather than making yourself feel bad about the overly restrictive budget that you created. And if over time this still doesn't help you reach your financial goals, it's possible that you don't have a spending problem. Maybe you have an income problem. Perhaps you need to focus your efforts on increasing your income rather than reducing expenses, but that doesn't mean that you should give up on your budget. If you're not engaging with a budget and/or somehow tracking your spending and income, then how will you know if you're moving towards your financial goals? Well, that should do it for today. Have a happy rest of your day and a great weekend, and I'll see you tomorrow where we'll finish up this post and where your optimal life awaits.